establishing a covered bond marketplace here in the United States. Covered bonds are basically debt instruments issued by financial institutions and backed, or covered if you will, by a pool of high-quality loans. And covered bonds are kept on the balance sheet, and this is important, of the issuing institution. And so investors have a dual recourse to both the assets used as collateral, the loans in other words, as well as the underlying institution, for example, the bank. Covered bonds have been used in Europe for hundreds of years to help provide additional funding options for the issuing institutions, and they also made a major source of liquidity for many European nation mortgage markets. Covered bonds have performed extremely well during the financial crisis, largely because of the underwriting standards used for the loans in the covered pools. In other words, the bank has an interest in making sure that the loans are good loans. For example, in the summer of '08, a month before the financial crisis began to set in, there was an attempt by the administration to get this market off the ground. And the Treasury Department issued a list of best practices which describe the most prudent ways for interested issuers to offer covered bonds. Also, the FDIC published a final policy statement that provided guidelines to investors as to what access the FDIC would be able to offer. But to date, there have only been 2 issuances of covered bonds in the U.S. by Bank of America and Washington Mutual, which is now part of J.P. Morgan. And over the last several months, however, there have been a tremendous increase in demand from investors for this type of bonds. So in 1 week in September alone, there were 7 new issuances in a variety of different European countries that totaled over $20 billion. One financial analyst went so far as to call it an unprecedented supply frenzy. So at a time, and I'll close on this, when we desperately need more private investment and additional liquidity in our credit markets, I believe we must work to set up a system that will allow covered bonds to flourish and that they're full promise to be explored and expand here in the United States. This amendment would lay out that detailed statutory framework to help facilitate the broader use of them, and a detailed framework is common in Europe and would probably help it flourish here in the United States as we set it forward. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
I thank the gentleman. He's been a very staunch advocate of a very good idea. I regret the fact that the kind of emergency nature of the committee has kept us from doing some other things that we should be doing. But tomorrow, I hope, will be the last of our major committee tie-up on this. We will be coming back, obviously, after Thanksgiving in December. I should announce now, and I've told them already, we are going to have a hearing on the FHA, which clearly requires one. And whichever week we are not in, either the second or third week, I believe the Housing Subcommittee should have a hearing on the covered bond issue. I think the gentleman has a good idea. And that would be with an intention, having had the hearing, which we haven't had yet, and I accept the responsibility for that, that we might very well be able to get this in shape to become part of the final bill, because as the gentleman from New Jersey and I discussed, we are going to have the subprime mortgage bill part of this overall bill. That will make mortgage issues germane, and we could at that point incorporate them. So I would ask if the gentleman would withdraw this now with the commitment for a hearing in December and the likelihood of being able to put this in the bill in the final version.
Well, I thank the chairman. Also, again, I thank the gentleman who's not sitting next to you, Mr. Kanjorski, for his work on this as well. And at this point, I will withdraw this amendment and yield back.
Are we ready to go on the Bean amendment? All right.